Welcome to the Positivity Effect, where paying it forward and doing something positive in someone's life can provide them with the confidence and motivation to do the same for someone else. Like a stone dropped into a lake, let's create a ripple effect of positivity throughout our world. And it begins with your host, Dr. Thomas Retcher.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Dr. Tom here, and you're listening to The Positivity Effect, episode number 121, The Crystal Staircase. Thank you so much for tuning into today's show. If this is your first time here listening, this is your first time to the podcast, welcome. I am so happy to have you here. Basically, this is a podcast where it's an interview format. Once in a while, I do throw an episode in there where it's just me, but most likely you're going to be listening to an interview type podcast. And a lot of the stuff that we talk about is to get that mind right, to get your thinking right. Because really the thing that holds us back in life is our own mind. It's ourself. Whether we're going through some kind of difficult situation in life, whether we're trying to make a shift, make a change, whether we're trying to interpret what something means to us, something that we're going through, it all comes down to what's going on inside of us internally. And that's really what we talk a lot about on this podcast. It's not all about unicorns and rainbows and happiness. It's this positivity effect, is that ripple effect that when we change ourselves internally, it impacts our world externally, and it creates a ripple effect for those around us, and it just keeps spreading. So thank you so much for tuning in. And before we get started, I just have a couple of announcements. So stay in touch with me, with the podcast, things that I'm doing behind the scenes with the show. Just text the word positivity to the number 44222. You're going to get a text message from me. And when you get that message, just follow the simple instructions and we'll be in touch. As well, I just want to ask you guys if you could do something for me as well. I don't charge anything for this show. My day-to-day activities with my career with work is I'm an audiologist. For those of you that if you're new to the show, and I help people with their hearing. And that's really what takes most of my time up. And I love to just do this on the side. I'm inspired on a daily basis with the people that I come across with and the people that I meet and the conversations that I have. And I just want to spread and share those messages and share the inspiration that people have instilled into my own life. And I'm so happy to be here sharing it with you guys. But what I want to ask is if you could tell a friend, share this podcast with somebody. If this show has impacted your life in some way, there's somebody in your life that needs to hear the same message. And in addition, please leave a review on iTunes. iTunes is the biggest place to get ears on this podcast. And when you leave a review, it really helps with the rankings with the show. And of course, because when people are looking for something to tune into, your review really matters. It makes an impact when they make that decision about what show they want to listen to. So I ask if you guys can do that for me. If this show really means something to you, I really appreciate it. So thank you so much. Today we're joined by Jaret Grossman, and he's the co-founder of MuscleProdigy.com. MuscleProdigy.com gets over 250,000 unique monthly visitors, and their social media channels have been exploding, guys. And this all comes down to hard work, grit, and determination to truly be the best at which in the space that you're providing value. Jaret is a shining example of this. Muscle Prodigy's flagship product, MP45, it's a 45-day workout program for the gym and has impacted thousands of people's lives for the better. Jaret's mission in creating this brand and product was to help kind of break down the myths around fitness that have existed for so many decades. And he wants to help millions of people change their bodies and do it naturally, like he was able to, without deprivation, with doing it in a joyful state. If you were to Google Jaret's name, a whole slew of things would come up. And he's actually impacted my life for many, many years, which you guys are going to hear about on the podcast, and he's just doing so much today. It's really an inspiration and an honor to have him on this podcast. So I'm not going to say anything else. I'm going to let the episode speak for itself. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome to the Positivity Effect, Jaret Grossman. Jaret, what's going on?
Hey, what's up, buddy? How you doing?
Good. Welcome to the Positivity Effect.
Love it. Thanks for having me on here, Dr. Tom. Seriously.
Thank you. And, we had a little moment to talk before we got on, and, you've been a big influence in my life. I've been following you for quite some time, and there's a lot of, for those of you listening that don't know who Jaret is, I'm going to be putting some show note links in for you guys to listen if you haven't ever heard of him. But some powerful stuff that you have out there, Jaret, that is really motivating people and inspiring people. And I know for me that a lot of the audio tracks that you've put out there, a lot of the videos, times when I wasn't motivated, times when I was down, just lost, times when I maybe got in an argument with my wife or lost my there were so many moments where I had listened to your stuff and it brought me back to center. So there's always going to be somebody out there that's influencing us, that's making us a better person. And it's just, I feel it's an arrogant statement to feel that for any of us to say that there's nobody out there that's motivating us. So, I just want to say thank you for coming on and welcome.
I appreciate that, man. Hey, thanks so much. Yeah. I'm really moved by your sentiments here. Yeah. And you're doing amazing things, man. Congratulations to all your success. Seriously.
Thank you so much, Jaret. So, again, for those of you guys don't know who you are, I'd love for you to just give us a little bit of a background, where you got started. It's kind of cool. We actually come from the same island, Long Island. It's not too much of a tropical place, but that background, where you got started, and also the principles of, I know you're big with wrestling. What were some of those success principles when you got into wrestling, and how did it shape your life and lead you kind of towards where you are today?
For sure. So I grew up on Long Island, a small city, Oyster Bay, 100 kids in the high school per grade, so everybody knew everybody kind of thing. And I got bullied. I got picked on. I've told this story a million times kind of thing. But wrestling is really the pathway that sort of changed my life. Fitness, my childhood friend, Richie Allen, he was working out for a couple of years at the time and dragged me into the gym kind of thing. We were workout partners, and I quickly progressed my body weight up. So went from 90 pounds, all of a sudden I'm 130 pounds and 140, 150, and worked my way up eventually to 215 pounds and completely transformed my life. So that was sort of the catalyst for me to understand that change is really possible, that it's like what you put into life, you'll get out of it kind of thing. And I had certain mentors in my life, wrestling coaches and stuff like that, who really taught me about work ethic. And I think that's a real strong pillar that you have to have if you want to be successful, is your willingness to work, your willingness to want things to change in a way, and for you to put your nose to the grindstone kind of thing to make it happen. And I've been through an evolutionary process just basically based on what you were talking about before, where I haven't been always motivated every day of my life. To the contrary, there have been months where it's I'm questioning the world or what's going on and kind of thing. And it's out of my need essentially to solve problems. And mainly that starts with trying to solve your own problems kind of thing, that you eventually gain some golden nuggets and wisdom and insight. And then that becomes valuable for other people. So that's when I realized that was sort of like my path to impart wisdom. So it started out in the fitness space to be able to give back the tools of what transformed my life in terms of the physical fitness capacity, because I think there's so much bogus information out there, or myths or so forth, in terms of the strategy. So this is I've created a 45-day workout program, meal plan guide, along with my partner Richie Allen, to take people through the process of sort of a 6.5 week transformation of, if you never touched a weight before in your life or never worked out, how you can actually get motivated to start something and stay committed all the way to the end, where you then get addicted to fitness and you're training like an elite athlete would, essentially. That's where it started. And we've been growing ever since, fortunately, and it sort of has gotten a little mainstream attention now, but it was a decade of grinding kind of thing. and just seeing a vision, a reality of how to make this happen. And through that process, people were coming to me basically saying, hey, how can I change my relationship or emotions or whatnot? And just putting out various content that would walk people down that path of what gets them started into something, how they could finish something, how they could believe in themselves, develop confidence, all that stuff, and just real strategies that could help them become the best versions of themselves ultimately, that I was able to sort of help thousands of people change their life.
I like that you said work ethic, because I think all of us can agree that there's so many times in our life when we're about to do something or start up on something new, we get really excited, and maybe you go through that first day, second day, and then the third or fourth day, you're like, whoa, this is really, really tough. Whether you're going to start taking guitar lessons or you're going to start a new business, you get so pumped, and we forget about that work ethic. And like you said, you get those little golden nuggets, little things that you're in that grind, you're working, you remember. And I love how you started and kind of talk about in the book about discovering your life's purpose. Is there's going to be those moments, like you said, you still have those moments where you're going to question the world, you're going to forget, you're going to say, why am I still doing this? And just when you go back to that purpose and you keep focusing on why you're doing the work, even though it feels like a grind, and all these little things pop up, these little amazing moments that are like, yeah, this is why I'm doing this. This is awesome. And then it gives you more confidence, and then you keep kind of pushing forward.
Absolutely, spot on, man. So yeah, if you could connect back to that, I call it a vision, like a real glimpse of who you're going to be in the future. If you can connect really to that in crystal clear detail more, then you realize this is who I'm destined to be. And if it feels like it's a part of your destiny, you'll push through whatever pain there is. But you don't want to push through pain for the rest of your life, essentially, and you don't want to do it out of fear. So if you could find deeper reasons of why you're doing something and shift that to goodness, good intent, then you're going to be living in pleasure, in a state of fulfillment, ultimately is what I call it, which is achieving your inner blueprint while you feel at peace within during that entire process.
If you were to talk about wealth creation for a moment, or maybe even talk about success with a relationship, do you find that a lot of people are doing that out of fear? Maybe they feel, and it could be a motivator, of course, like you say, for a point where, I'm now making some money, or I'm earning, I don't want to go back to where I was. So it's like out of fear, or, I don't want to go back to the relationship.
100%.
And yeah, where can that shift be, where they realize, it doesn't have to be out of fear. It could be because, I guess, you, like you were saying, that you're connecting with more of a purpose of why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah. So, I mean, you could take the example of, are you getting in shape ultimately because of some kind of fear motivator, like you're talking about, where somebody's yelling in your face? That only lasts so long. As soon as that external motivation is gone, then what's left is you ultimately, and you won't push yourself to action unless you have deeper reasons. So let's say you're in a job and the only thing that's pushing you to pick up the phone and do sales calls, for instance, is this concept of fear pushing at you that I can't pay the bills or whatever it is if I don't do this. It's not a very deep reason. And as soon as you don't have bills to pay, now what happens? You can't control your game because you're waiting for that external motivation to push you. So the only way through it is to find deeper reasons of why is it important for me to pick up the phone and sell? Why is it important for me to get this in the hands of as many people as possible? And the more you connect to those kinds of reasons, then you're doing it more out of a goodness if you really go deep.
I think that applies. So one of the biggest cornerstones in life is relationships. Mm-hmm. Like, at least I know for me, being newly married, that if me and my wife aren't right, if we're not good, it affects the rest of my day. And
right. So you value strong
relationship. Yeah. And as we work through those, like those early moments, those moments and times of discovery of each other, and maybe we're working through arguments or frustrations, I found just understanding what you're describing, when I remind myself why why did I get married? Why is this person in my life? Not just because I have to, society says I have to have someone, in my life. That is way more powerful, and it always it allows my brain that ancient programming that we all have between the 6 inches between our ears that can get in the way sometimes. It reminds me that this is more important, and she's more important, and that ultimately we're in it as a team together. So true with relationships.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, anytime you're trying to, it's never a good situation when one partner tries to dominate another, and it always leads to conflict and so forth. So if that's the quest is love, it's really the quest for everything in life in a way. It's just that to fall back on that goodness. And if you could find the deeper reasons, like you're mentioning, of why you got started in the first place, and it's pure, then it's going to give you all the motivation, energy, intrinsic motivation you've ever dreamed of.
So true. All right, so Jaret, I want to shift a little bit. One of the areas that part of your business that has been very influential in my life, I mentioned it at the top of the call, is some of the audios that you have put out there. And one of the songs I want to talk about it's on your newer album, The Crystal Staircase. So I want you to, just to kind of, because I love listening to that track, and I want to kind of hear your thoughts and dissect it a little bit.
Yeah, so I think that so many people have difficulty taking action. They live up in their head, they're deliberating, they're constantly thinking or trying to strategize or plan, what should I do? Or maybe they're not even deliberating or strategizing, but they're not moving. And you got to move, you got to get moving. And what I analogize it to is that people are really petrified to take action because they're afraid of messing up. And I broke it down into this crystal staircase that we visualize in our head kind of thing, where the gold is at the top. But life is like wearing these muddy boots with spikes on them, and it's inevitable. You're going to scratch it up if you take one step. But it's easier for us to keep that vision in our mind of, well, if I don't take the step, then at least I have this visualization. I have this picture that it was possible in some spiritual realm in a way. But in reality, it never takes hold in the physical world. So the only way to actually feel fulfilled, because that'll eat at you forever for the rest of your life. There will always be a void that I didn't do this, I didn't do this, that you've got to take a step. It's going to look like a mess. But then when you get to the top, you actually do get to the top. You're going to realize how intricate it was. And it's almost like those scratches were like cleaned up. It's almost like they were perfectly in place once you're there. So it's an interesting kind of concept, but it's helped a lot of people take action just by understanding that.
So you find that with fear, that's a fear thing, that people don't want to take action because of that comfort level.
Yeah, the middle ground is what kills us, which is ultimately, if we know something's going to work, we'll take action all day, right? If there's a guarantee. But it's the middle ground of, well, I'm not sure if this is going to work. And we just hesitate. It's this perpetual hesitation in a way. And what is really holding us back is some element of fear. That is, maybe it's fear of being judged. Maybe it's fear of what if you do fail kind of thing. Whatever it's going to be a little unique to every kind of person. But it is stemmed in a concept of you're afraid to do it.
When was a point in your life when you felt there was a hesitation, but you knew you were moving forward, but there was like, you're looking up, you're like, I don't know if I can get up there.
Oh yeah. So I always felt in my gut that I had to be a great orator in a way. And I was terrible at communicating and influence and leadership and all that stuff, and speaking, stuttering, all this kind of stuff that a good orator doesn't do, right? So that was petrifying for me in many respects. And that's a large reason why I forced myself to do a video every day for a year. And I really put it out there just to stay accountable to it. So I couldn't back out, was to grow in that process.
And that's the beauty of it, man. It's like, if someone was to just come across your stuff today and have never had heard of you or known you, and they hear how powerfully you are able to take something, what looks like words on a page, and now present it in a way and package it up in a way where it kicks your ass. It makes you move. It makes you take action. They'd be like you said, this guy was born this way. And I love that, because and most intimately yourself, that it's what you're doing in the dark, when nobody's looking, when nobody's watching, what you're doing at night. How many times are you practicing in front of the mirror? How many times are you doing a daily video? Like that.
Definitely.
The action that has to go into, guys, to do that. I'm sure, how many days, where you're doing that the first time you did that, and you're like, you wake up, you're like, no way, I am not putting up another video today. And you do it because and you get past that mental wiring that says, no, I don't want to do it today. And then it just becomes easier and easier and easier. And then all of a sudden people start noticing what you're doing, and you're influencing. And that's what we talk a lot about, guys, on this show. That's the positivity effect. We're not talking about positive thinking and just smiling and bad things happen in your life and we're just going to smile when it happens. We're talking about that ripple effect that our actions have in life. And that, what a great example, Jaret, of talking about doing a daily video to work on those skills of oration, to become that vision of who you want it to be. It just as you continue to do it, you were yourself getting better, and also creating that ripple effect out there. And as I told you before we go, I've been listening to you for almost 10 years. And now 10 years later, you and I are sitting here face to face, digitally face to face,
an honor, man,
talking on a podcast. It's crazy. It's crazy what action, such a simple thing in life, but it's so hard for all of us to do it at times. And that's why it's important why I mentioned at the beginning, guys, that if you don't have it, don't get frustrated that you don't have it. It's important to reach out to people that you want to be like. And for me, that was 10 years ago, listening to someone like Jaret, for me, that's what got me motivated. That's what you need to do. You need to latch on to something. Someone that, I always use that example of a lighthouse. There you are with those videos. You were shining a light in the dark, and it guided people back. It guided people home. It guided people out of that darkness in their mind. And that's what we can all be on some level. And you may say, why do I want to be a lighthouse for others? Maybe I'm going through something dark right now. Well, guys, sometimes the dark moment you're going through, if there's someone out there that needs to hear that story, and it doesn't have to be on a podcast or in a movie or on a documentary. It could be your neighbor. It could be the person on the line that's at the counter that's checking out your groceries. We can all influence anybody in our lives. It all just starts with action, what Jaret's describing.
Yeah, I used to have to hit stop, record on those videos 100 times to get it perfect, get it right. And you'll push yourself as long as you can connect to this is part of your destiny. And I invite everybody to really find out what that is. And if you have glimpses of yourself in the future, really bring focus to it, turn it into a movie. Not just a still gray image that just pops up out of nowhere and you're stuffing it down. Really connect with it. It's there for a reason. And then once you have that, now you're going to really tap into, there's a conflict. This is who I am. This is who I'm destined to be in the future. And whatever you're going through is usually, like you mentioned, a darkness. Almost all the time after any darkness that we go through, there's always light at the end of that tunnel that comes in droves, usually right after that period. So it's this temporary sort of uncertainty, pain, and so forth that eventually gives us these nuggets, wisdom, but most importantly, appreciation for the other side. It's we have to sort of get tested and go through a little darkness or pain just so that we can really never lose focus of appreciation or gratitude that we have of this is why it's so important.
Yeah. What was that example of those miners out in California? They were digging, and they stopped and they left. Somebody else came in and found exactly, the big treasure, and it was right there. And it was a true story, I believe. Who knows? But
yeah, it happens over and over.
And what it was a little more push to remember why they were doing it, and there was that whole treasure on the other side. enter in, I'll be whatever, a successful business, that car you always wanted, the house you wanted to live in, your dream relationship, the impact you want to make on the world. So true. Very, very true. So I want to talk about another track that was very definitely impactful for me these last 10 years is the song Time Is So Precious on the first album, It's All On You.
Yeah.
Talking back, tying back into that idea about productivity, about work ethic. Why is it so important for people to open their eyes and realize that time is so precious? I mean, I think about my own days. I write down to the minute like what I need to do because I know that there's just not enough time in the day, and you can be so much more productive. And I think so many people out there don't realize how much time they are wasting and how they can be more productive in certain areas.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you've got, I think it's 168 hours in a week, right? And a third of your life for many people is spent sleeping. So you only got that 2/3. And if you're working just to make ends meet or whatnot, you've only got 6-8 hours a day maybe to really enjoy with family and make an impact and do things that you really love and your passion and so forth and make the world a better place. So you got to soak up every single moment. You only have a certain amount of time here. But most importantly is just what energy are you going to bring from moment to moment in terms of because you don't want to get to a place if what happens is you become a real action taker in many respects, and you go gung-ho. The pendulum swings the other way where you're very stressed, and then you're bringing a false energy, a fake energy, a negative energy to every single moment, and you're robbing the gift of who you were supposed to be or what that moment was supposed to present itself with your family or your friends or so forth, or whether it's at work and with your coworkers or a client and whatnot. So it's just about understanding the intricacy of the universe in a way and how everything is sort of mapped out brilliantly. If you could really tap into it and you could see it, like Einstein said, everything's going to be either a miracle or it's not going to be based on your own internal decision. And that's the most important decision you're going to have to make. So you could see this world as sort of negative or positive. So it's just an understanding you're not going to be here forever. What legacy do you want to leave? And ultimately, how do you reverse engineer that process to be able to do it?
Guys, I hope you really were focusing in on what Jaret was just saying. And if not, definitely rewind. If you're here listening to this podcast, if you're following this show, if you're following Jaret, if you're following anybody out there that's looking to make an impact in people's lives and help inspire them, I think there comes a moment for all of us, myself, Jaret, everybody, all of you guys listening. We all have that Matrix moment, that Neo moment where you realize you take the pill, you have awareness about how the world really is. And you realize that you don't have to be a product of your circumstances. That you have, we could feel like we're so out of control. You look on the news and how the news paints such a negative image of the world. And if we're listening here, if you're listening from the United States, just how you feel what the state is of the country right now, there's all this negativity, and you can feel like you don't have any control at all. But what Jaret's saying is that, guys, you do have control. And it starts within your own mind. It's taking that action. It's saying, I want to wake up in the morning and be more productive. It's saying, I don't want to pick up that donut and I want to have a salad, or I want to go to the gym. And it seems so simple, but that's what that biggest challenge is. And that's where you have the control, is with the actions and what you choose, right? I think like what you choose, everything means to you. You see something happen, and what does it mean to you? How do you take it, and what do you process with it, and then do with it that information that you receive?
Yeah, the meaning is going to shape how you feel about something, your emotion, and then the emotion is usually going to dictate what action you take, whether it's no action at all, whether it's a bad action, or whether it's a good action, positive. So if you could control the meaning, you can control your emotion, and ultimately you can control the action, kind of thing. So it's really very much an internal game, what you can control. There's external circumstances you're not going to be able to, but something that was powerful for me was listening to something Tony Robbins was talking about with Thanksgiving dinner one time, where a stranger, brought him and his family a Thanksgiving meal. And his father took the interpretation of that as, I'm a failure. I can't even provide for my family, and went down a different path. And Tony sort of took that as strangers care. Therefore, I need to care about strangers. And then that transformed his whole entire life, really. And he talks about that to this day. So again, it's going to be on how you view the meaning of it. And if you're viewing this thing as what's going on is really negative and blaming yourself kind of thing, as opposed to just trying to find the beauty in it or what it's trying to get you to do or see, then you're going to miss what it was there for.
I love that story. Talk about the ripple effect, man. Like you and I probably wouldn't be talking right now. He was such a big influence on my life too. Like what actions led from him taking that step and realizing what that meant to him and where he is today and the people that he's influenced. So yeah, that's very, very powerful. Jaret, let's talk a little bit about the book. So cracking the code. We kind of talked about awareness. What does that mean to you, and why this book? Why now? What does this mean for you in terms of taking this next step and helping people?
Awesome. So you mentioned something, back to the ripple effect. You mentioned something powerful, was like your story needs to be heard by somebody. It could be somebody like your neighbor. And if you feel like it's too hard to change the world because there's just too many people in it, you'll never get started in something, in a way. And you got to really understand that changing one person does change the world. And it's based on this ripple effect, essentially chaos theory. So if you ever seen Jurassic Park, he's saying, put your hand a certain way, and then he pours water, and then he changes it a little, and the water goes a completely different direction, right? Just off of that little tiny change in input results in a drastic change in output. The butterfly effect, the butterfly can change, ultimately, it could cause a tsunami in a different part of the world, right? Theoretically. So it's due to this chaos theory. So if you take a little pebble and you throw it in the pond, it's a tiny little pebble, but it's a processional effect. The outside of the pond will be affected based on the ripples that bow out, essentially. So it's in understanding that mindset that you got to get started. And if you can have an impact in one person's life, it's enough to change the world, kind of thing. And ultimately, you want to grow from there. But you mentioned awareness. The more aware you become about what you're subconsciously doing, whether it's your negative emotions that you're reacting to, or why you do certain things that you do, or positive things. There are many things that you're doing great in your life, but there's no conscious thought, it's subconsciously. But the only thing is that if you wanted to replicate it, or you wanted to show up now, if you're just waiting for an emotion to do it, you can't consciously have that power to be able to do it when you want. So for me, it's about really understanding consciously what is going on, so that you can replicate it, so that you could duplicate the activity, and it could show up whenever you want it, kind of thing. It's about aligning sort of the conscious with the subconscious in a way, and being aware of why other people are good at what they do, and how do you take the useful and discard the useless, something Bruce Lee said that I live by, which is that everybody's doing good things. And we often like to blanket somebody as just a bad person, a good person. But if you can really sift out, this person has good qualities, even though most people think they're bad, right? And how do I emulate many of those good qualities? But how do I discard some of those bad qualities that I don't want? And then vice versa, right? So forth. So it's just in understanding that concept more and more. And then the more you go down that wormhole, the more you understand how everybody has a purpose in a way. And how do you help unleash that purpose within other people to really bring it into crystal clear focus, so that they too can have the tools to be able to consciously do it. Because ultimately what it comes down to is this: if my hand is in pain, my whole body's in pain, right? And mentally. So we can isolate ourselves from people, essentially, and just say it's not my problem. But eventually there is pain in the world because this problem hasn't been fixed yet. And if you could bring up your conscious awareness to try to, help as many people as possible, not only will it come back to you, that's my firm belief in a way, but you're going to experience more pleasure and help the world experience more pleasure.
That's awesome. So somebody comes across some of these principles and they start understanding and they start gaining aware. Maybe their life was a mess and they start gaining awareness and realizing that they do want to change their life and make an impact. You talked about, it was on page 94. You talked about the importance of being in a peak state. Once somebody has that awareness and they want to be better, and I love that idea of peak state. What does that mean to you? Why is it so important? And then let's talk about. I'd love to hear about what do you do to get yourself in a peak state.
So to get myself into a peak state, I do all kinds of vigorous breathing. So it's in and out. And I do some power moves with it. So I do some explosive movements with my hands, my arms, stuff like that. And this gets sort of the energy flowing in me. But I think more accurately is to be living in sort of a beautiful state would be the way. So a peak state is a good start to understand how to break free from the emotion you're experiencing. So if you're experiencing a disempowering emotion that you don't want to feel, there's two approaches that I take. Is that I need to feel this for a specific reason. And connect with that reason. Or two is it's disempowering. It's not going to serve me in this moment. So get the hell out of it. And that means being able to break free. So to be able to break free from, let's say, anxiety or depression, you got to get into a powerful state, and you have to change it through your physiology. And this is why fitness is so important, in my opinion, and why they do studies, and they're mainly correlation. Why fit people are happier or whatnot. It's correlation, not causation in a way, but the body changing your physiology quickly changes your mind. And you could try to change your mind with your thoughts alone. It doesn't usually have a tremendous impact. But when you get into your body and you experience some intensity there, now different hormones get pushed out, adrenaline starts pumping, and now you could break free from that mind control in a way, and then you could actually create the reality that you want to create a little better. But ultimately, for me, it was like before every client call, I would get ramped up into this huge, tremendous peak state. I'm at a level 100, but sometimes that's not what's required in the moment. And you can't be super intense with everybody, So it was like shooting, a cannon at a rabbit kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. So now it's more in connecting with what's needed in the moment in a way. And I think that's the real peak state that we're after.
Right. And, I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins. You had mentioned that you are, and
Yeah.
we talk about peak state. He talks about progress equals happiness.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean to you, Jaret?
I think it's brilliant. I think he's spot on when he said that, and I took it up and taught many people this as well. If you feel like you're making progress in certain areas of your life, you're going to feel happy. In the moment that there's a stagnation, when you think of a pond, when it stagnates, it starts developing bacteria and so forth. So, and then obviously decay. If decay is a destruction, so if we can grow and on a deeper level, space is expanding, right? But that's ultimately our purpose too, is expansion. We're supposed to grow in all areas of our life, and that means that there's sort of like an infinite intelligence in a way that's out there. How do you align more and more with that? Because that's where you're going to experience pleasure as opposed to pain.
Love it, man. Jaret, I'm going to be we're coming to the end. I have one kind of last question I'd like to ask you, but before we do that, I'd love for you to share with us a little bit about what you have going on right now. If someone's listening and they are just so connected with you, we're going to talk. I'm going to have links for you guys for Jaret's book
Awesome.
In the show notes. But I'd love to hear just what's going on today. What is going on in your world right now?
Yeah, for sure. So working very hard on Muscle Prodigy. We're actually coming out with a supplement line. So that's very exciting. I'm very excited for that. It's been a long time coming. We had dreams of that for a long time, and now it's finally coming reality. So that's
man.
awesome.
That's awesome.
And, yeah, thank you. And our workout program MP45. It's a 45-day workout program to jumpstart you, so that it's a gradual, progressive approach. So it starts you out really light, and then eventually it ladders you up to do sort of the similar training that an elite athlete does, that I did in my college wrestling career, that turned me into a 3-time All-American and 215 pounds, and then eventually got down to 6% body fat. So and all natural. So
Awesome.
I try to teach people that how to do that. Through strategy and psychology, the motivation necessary to do it. And yes, I just came out with my book several months ago or whatnot. So that was a huge accomplishment of mine, cracking the code and working hard. And obviously in consulting, I'm taking a little break from a lot of new content and stuff like that. Just I'm more filling I gave a lot, and now I got to fill myself up a little bit more in a way. Yeah, doing some other ventures too,
Good,
so I've got a software that I'm coming out with that's more for businesses and communication and stuff like that, called Task Chat, that I'm excited about. So that should be fun.
Awesome, man. Awesome. All right. So my last question for you, Jaret, if you were suddenly at the end of your life and you were reflecting on all that you've been through, yes, all that you've created,
wow,
what kind of impact, man, would you want to be remembered for?
The first thing that's coming to mind is sort of like a pure energy and imparting that wisdom to others so they know how to do it themselves. That's what I really want to be remembered for, that it was just like as much goodness as a human could possibly have, in a way.
And you know what better testimonial, guys, myself sitting here telling you guys that 10 years later, I can honestly say that this dude is pure energy. And he's pure of heart, and he's here to help people and make a lasting impactful change out there for people that want it and need it and are open. Their hearts are open to it. So, Jaret,
awesome,
thank you
man.
so much.
Appreciate that, man,
for coming on.
Thank you. All right,
guys, if you want to if you want to check out more about this show, just head over to positivityeffect.com/Jaret Grossman. There'll be links over to Muscle Prodigy website, links over to his book. You can get a copy of that. Pick it up, learn a little bit more about what he's doing. I absolutely recommend, too, that you guys pick up the audio tracks on iTunes. The first album, right here, we got the first album is All On You, and you'll find the second album as well. They're both life-changing. So, good stuff. Jaret, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Hey, thank you, man. This is awesome.
All right, take care.
Likewise.